Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, it is to you to deliberate. Councilmember Sarega.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you again for all those that participated in this process. I know it's been a very short one, unfortunately. It would have been nice to have some more time and to actually be able to inform more residents of what's going on in their city, but unfortunately we don't have that luxury at this point. I just want to address three basic things with the map. Number one, these maps, they have a legal standard. So if you're within that legal standard, then it's considered an acceptable map. I don't think that should be the most important criteria when deciding what map to choose. But in fact, the best map to choose is that which keeps communities of interest, keeps neighborhoods that are alike together. And that should be the sole criteria that we judge these maps on. Because at the end of the day, they all meet the legal requirement, so therefore we must look at which one is best for the city of La Mirada. Now I'm going to touch on the industrial area because I know that's a source of angst with some people. The reality is that industrial area provides absolutely no political capital to any one individual council member. That's because there are no votes there. Secondly, that industrial area has always been more or less self-sustaining in the sense that we don't necessarily go in there and actively campaign or do anything because the reality is those people are running their businesses. So splitting it up into two areas actually causes what I would feel is a larger issue in that in order to get anything accomplished on this council, you have to have 3 votes. In order to get to 3, you have to be able to build that support. Well, if you are afraid that that industrial area is going to somehow control the city with their wealth and power, which I guarantee you is not the case, then having 2 council members in that area puts you that much closer to 3 votes. So again, that whole zone is there because it provides revenue for the city to continue to function, but it does not elect any council members. And limiting that influence, I think, would be a wise decision as opposed to splitting it up into 2, giving them more leverage in future votes. And then the third item, I guess I already touched upon it. We should choose the best map based on the fact that it keeps neighborhoods together. So there are 3 maps that I looked at in the past 2 months. I've been studying, or a month and a half, whatever it's been. I've been studying these maps quite intently. Map number 2, provided by the consultants, I think would be a decent map with 2 adjustments, because we were talking about gerrymandering and moving things around that don't belong. The neighborhood on the southwest side of Regional Park, if that were to be a part of District 4, and then in turn the area on the southwest part of District 3 to become part of District number 2. I think the numbers, I ran them the other day, would still fall within the legal requirement, but I think that better keeps communities of interest together, and it doesn't split literally 2 streets out of a district to allow someone else to run and someone else not to. But I think map number 2 is a pretty fair compromise. The MALDEF map, I think, is the best proposed map. I believe that it does actually take into consideration the city of La Mirada beyond any political ambitions, in the sense that it really does split the city up in the most fair manner along major arterial highways and arteries, keeping the neighborhoods intact, which is the ultimate goal of any map. District number 4 addresses the regional park and golf course areas as well as the agricultural areas in our city, and I think that is a vital part of La Mirada that most people know it as kind of old La Mirada, or old wealthy La Mirada in a sense. When you look at district number 3, the theater center, that district also is very compact in the sense that that's always been considered central La Mirada. District number 2 keeps Biola in as much as possible in one district, which again, Biola is probably the number one community impactor in our city, if I'll say that. And then number 5, the Hillsborough area, and District number 1 is it's oddly cut. It really is, because realistically, if you want to talk about motivations, they submitted a map that has the highest Hispanic population in that district at 53%, and they also chose 3 of the highest Hispanic populated neighborhoods in the city of La Mirada. So their motivation is very clear. They want a district that has the highest majority of Hispanic voters. That's what this whole thing was about. And that's why they proposed a map like that. Now, if we look at map number 8, draft number 8, and also draft number 12, which are one and the same, I do have some issues with that map. And firstly, I think it places 3 communities of interest well outside their normal neighborhoods. If you look at the east edge of District number 5, that's the Breezewood Homes community in that area. That community has always been part of the Meadow Greens neighborhood, connected to Dulles. Literally, you can only get into that area of living through one street, and I don't see it here, but it has one entrance, one exit, and it leads out to District number 3. So to cut that out and put it in District number 5, I think would be a mistake. Secondly, Biola University, which, as I stated previously, is the number 1 impact on our city in terms of traffic, employees. They're the biggest employer in the city, all sorts of things, and they're a great community partner. Biola University is literally put in 3 different districts, which I think is a disservice to them. Biola University should have a representative that they can turn to if need be, and really address some of the issues going on in that area. I know the neighborhood south of Biola is inhabited by a lot of students because there's a lot of rental housing. Having attended Biola and having visited a lot of my soccer teammates that lived in that area, I can tell you there's issues plaguing that neighborhood because of the students that go to Biola. I think they're some of the best students in the world, much better than a lot of other colleges, but at the end of the day, they're still college kids, so they'll do what they do. Likewise, the community north of Biola. This one puts it in District number 4, which I understand they have rental properties along Rosecrans, but those properties are much less impactful to the actual neighborhoods because they flood out straight into Rosecrans. Another issue I had with District Map number 4 was that it does place 2 current council members in the same district, and just happens to be the 2 that are up for re-election. Now, this shouldn't be a deciding factor, I don't think, but at the end of the day, we do take all consideration in that the individuals standing on this, or sitting on this dais, were elected by the people, and the people should have the right to be able to re-elect those individuals should they choose to do so. Now, if we go into the aspect of impartiality, any map proposed by a resident is going to have some degree of impartial nature. And Mr. Sarega pointed out before, this map would place the father of the author of it in a district all by himself, while forcing 2 other council members to run in the same district, eliminating one of them from contention right off the bat, being the end result. So MALDEF's map is actually the only, and NDC's map, the only impartial maps that have been proposed that, again, they don't have a dog in the fight or a horse in the race. Having said that, I would strongly encourage council to take into consideration not which map is the most contiguous, the most compact, the best looking in terms of NDC's criteria, but to really look at which map evenly divides the city into districts that have natural representation, and to keep in mind that no matter what these districts are, in 6 years they will be redrawn when the new census data comes out, because every 10 years you have to go through a redistricting process based on your new demographics. So this map changes in 6 years anyway. I think the wisest thing for the current council, in order to facilitate a more smooth transition into what is uncharted territory and unknown waters, is to try to keep the council as cohesive as possible and to allow those serving the opportunity to continue to serve. So with that being said, I've made my approval, my like of the MALDEF map known. And one other point I want to touch upon, because it was mentioned by several people, to completely discredit the MALDEF map just because it was proposed by MALDEF. I think that would be an error, and a grave error, because at the end of the day, we're not judging a map based on who submitted it. That would be a mistake. We are judging the map based on which one is the best for the city of La Mirada. And that should be the criteria that we judge each and every one of these maps on. So with that being said, I know other council members will have things to speak about as well, but I just wanted to put a motion out on the table as well. It doesn't need a second right now, but I do move that we approve the MALDEF 1 map for the city of La Mirada districting.
Thank you, Councilmember Sarega. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to all the speakers that spoke at the last 2 meetings and today.
So let me interject.
Yes, sure.
You should ask for a second, because that would, there's no second, the conversation is broader. If there's a second.
Because
then you
I
have
thought,
to-
I didn't really ask for a motion, so that's why I thought we didn't
Well, that's
need
why
to
I
do it.
didn't want a
but-
second to keep the conversation broad, and then afterwards be able to take the second.
Or we
So
have to go for the second.
Should withdraw the motion so you can have the broader.
I'll go ahead and withdraw the motion and have the broader discussion.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the hundreds of emails that I've received, texts, and the people I spoke to in person who promoted or supported or advocated a position or a map. Let me begin by reflecting on my previous work experience. I worked in mergers and acquisitions for about 4 or 5 years. Been involved with about half a dozen, close to a dozen mergers and acquisitions, both on the acquirer side and also as an acquiree. And it's difficult. And the lessons learned that I learned from those experiences is that it doesn't matter how great a deal looks on paper. What matters is the trust that the two companies have for each other and the fact that the cultures can come together seamlessly. That's what I learned. And the fact that MALDEF submitted a map really rubs me the wrong way. It really does. To me, it's almost like a hostile takeover. And those never worked out for me. Why did I say all that? Because La Mirada is a very special city. It's not just contract, buildings, or restaurant. We heard from a public speaker earlier, Brock, the new owner. It's about the people and the relationship the city has with their people. I went back online and looked at the city's strategic plan and also looked at the community satisfaction survey. 93% of residents surveyed are happy with La Mirada. That doesn't happen overnight. It really doesn't. It is respect and trust earned over time. That trust doesn't come in 30 days, 60 days, like MALDEF thought they can do. Now they want to come and demand that we give them trust and that respect. Sorry, not for me. I don't buy that. In looking at community survey, 96% of the people feel safe in our city. 94% appreciate the quality infrastructure we have in our city. 93% of the people appreciate the way it looks and how clean it is. Now over 90% loves the community events and that we put together, that we host. To me, that is the relationship between the city and its residents, and one that's not easily broken. Tell me if you can find another city with those kind of ratings. I don't think you could. I don't believe you could. This is a great city. It's a great city. I look at all the maps. I did give MALDEF benefit of the doubt. I look at it. And I said, okay, there are other credible maps I looked at, and I looked at the merits of each one. And what I did was I used the strategic plan that a very professional, competent staff have written and developed. And basically, it's online. You can look at it. But the strategic plan does 3 things. Number 1, it provides direction. Number 2, it frames the roadmap on how to get it done, how to get there. But perhaps the most important thing is it identified areas of opportunities that we need to focus on for the city to grow. And in that strategic plan, under the opportunity section, 5 areas of focus was mentioned. Biola, over 60,000 students. Nationally ranked private university. Number 2, La Mirada High School, the only high school in the city. And think about the social and economic implications about that high school. You know, we were to focus on the growth of that high school. The industrial area, I-5, the only really real strategic growth, economic growth we have in our city because of the parcels available. Splash, you know, I can't say enough about Splash. Splash in the rec center. Delivering affordable programs for cities, for residents, communities to come together and spend time together. And finally, the theater. You know, recently nominated for 22 Ovation Awards. And you know what? In this digital age, it gives community like ours culture and character. And I believe that's very, very special and important. So if I look at the maps, my favorite one, I agree with Councilman Sarega. I take the people out of it, including myself. You know, whether or not they end up in a same district, you know, I take the personalities out of it. I look at which map will help us highlight and focus on these 5 assets. So I look at map number 12. If you can go there, Dr. Levitt, please. District number 3, you have La Mirada High School. District number 5, you have Splash. District number 2, you have the theater. District number 1, you have the Imperial Corridor. And district number 4, you have Biola and industrial area for growth. I think it's naturally, we talked about these lines are not meant to last. And these lines, they're not walls, they're just lines, guys. So ultimately, the decision has to come from 3 or more people here up on this dais. So I want to say that the most important thing is that we're able to highlight what's most important for our growth for the city. And I vote for number 12.
Thank you, Councilman Sugar.
I was just gonna quick comment on it,
Okay.
if possible, on something that was just said.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that what Councilmember Ed said is, I think, very important, the strategic growth of our city over the long term. But the problem I have with it is District Number 1, which is the Hispanic district in our city, actually has none of those in its district. If I'm not mistaken, in this map, Biola falls into District Number 4. So the Imperial Corridor is actually in District Number 5. And I think it would be a mistake to use that criteria to judge the map when District Number 1 actually has no specific focus of economic development or major interest in the city, given that it's split up literally into all residential area, other than maybe that one shopping center off Imperial and Valley View. But other than that, I think it loses a lot of the economic growth focus, and I think that's very much unfair to the Hispanic population that lives in that district, that if we're judging it on that criteria, they get nothing. So that's just something I want to throw out when I looked at that map.
Thank you, Mayor DeRoos. I'm not nervous, I'm just very cold because the air conditioning vent is pointed right at me. So if I'm shaking, it's because I'm cold. First of all, I'd like to say that this hasn't been easy for any of us. Like some of you council members, I have lost countless nights of sleep contemplating what is best for our city. And I have not discussed purposely any of my ideas or my thoughts or my beliefs with my council members because I felt that was the right thing to do. Each of us have to make our own decision and come together and make the best decision for our city. What do you do when you disagree with something? I personally try to focus on the positive. This change to districts could potentially elect someone who others may feel more comfortable with about sharing their concerns. I know from just being a female this to be true. I have women come up to me and tell me that they are speaking to me about their issues or concerns because they feel more comfortable speaking to another female. I get that. Also, between March 2017 and 19, you would have 2 new council members and could potentially have 4. What's positive about that, you ask? You become more flexible and open-minded. You have a better understanding about cultural differences and appreciate diversity. And what do I know about diversity, you ask? Let me name a few of my blood relatives. I'm an aunt and a great aunt to a Manny Tafoya, a Mark Tafoya, a Kane Tafoya, a Kai Tafoya, a Lori Tafoya, a Brooke Tafoya, a Alyssa Tafoya, a Rita Espinosa, a Rachel Espinosa, a Reina Romo, an Anna Oriana, an Emma Oriana, and a Joseph Oriana, just to name a few. We are a small city, and even though I don't believe it could happen, districts can create the possibility of great division. Those elected tend to focus only in the boundaries of their district. The more districts that connect to each other around our assets, the better. The decisions today will have a lasting effect on our city, and that is why I choose map 12. It has 2 districts next to our industry. Biola is our largest employer, and the role it plays in our community, I believe, makes La Mirada a desirable place to live and raise a family. And even though Biola is encapsulated into one district, it is bounded by 2 others. Or bordered by 2 others, sorry. The same goes for Regional Park, Splash, City Hall, Activity Center, Library, and La Mirada High School. We have 3 districts representing our largest commercial areas. Even though it puts 2 council members each in districts on this map 2 and 4, and would eliminate 2 of us, or possibly all 4 of us, by 2019. District 1 has a 50% Hispanic population, and District 3 has a 42% Asian population. In the spirit of positivity, it would create a wider breadth of views, insights, and shared talents within our community.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you up front, I don't like any of these maps. I don't like the whole concept of mapping. I think this is wrong-headed. I think it's not in the interest of the city of La Mirada. I understand why we made the decision, and the decision was made, and we must move on. A couple of things about the maps. I agree with Councilmember Sarega in his comment about the fact that the MALDEF map was drawn by MALDEF. Doesn't matter who drew the map. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So the fact that MALDEF drew this map doesn't bother me at all. It does interest me that in practically the same breath, they criticized map number 8 because of who drew it. As far as the industrial area is concerned, we just finished a meeting with our economic advisor, who we hired at some expense to the city. And one of the things he strongly advised us to do was get more involved in the industrial area of the city. This is our money generator. This is where the tax dollars come from that keep the wheels of the city turning. With that in mind, I think it is important that the industrial area be represented by more than one council member. Also, there were some comments about confrontation between existing councilmen, and the suggestion was made that the MALDEF map is the only one that doesn't present that. Well, that overlooks the fact that the MALDEF map puts Councilmember Sarega and myself in the same district. So, back to the industrial area. That brings us to drafts 11 and draft 12. In my opinion, draft 11 is an obvious gerrymander and therefore unsupportable. So that brings me to map 12, and that's where my support lies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Moles. I want to thank everyone for all their input in all of this. This has been a very difficult process, one that was kind of forced on us and was something that we had to do quite quickly. But I want to say this before I talk about any maps, that the challenge, and I said this I believe a couple of weeks ago, the challenge for this council is to make this work for the benefit of all of La Mirada. We've succeeded, as Mayor Pro Tem Edding has pointed out, we've succeeded because of what we've done, because we've been a cohesive unit. We've operated as a council of 5, not because we've had special interests, but because we've operated as a council of 5, and our motto has always been, what is best for La Mirada? And so our challenge going forth with all of this is to continue to operate as a council of 5 and do what's best for La Mirada, not a council of 5 that are fragmented and individual and looking out for their own self-interests. What we do today and what we do going forward with this, especially going into our retreat in March, April, is how we assemble this, how we put this together for future councils. It's extremely important what we do today and what we do in the next 6 months, because future councils will look back and have to stand on the shoulders of what we are doing. And so, having said all of that, we're setting a course for the future. And one of the things that I heard here about the maps is we are not putting boundaries up that you will not be able to cross from one district to another. I've heard some language like, you're not going to be able to get to District 5 because of District 3. That's ridiculous. We're not doing that. What we are doing is just putting together voting districts for representation. As far as the industrial area goes, I am in favor of splitting the industrial area, and the reason is, as Councilmember Moles pointed out, we came out of a meeting where that is an extremely important area. People don't realize it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, City Manager, but I believe about 80% of our revenue comes out of that particular area. So that is a vital area. And my concern moving forward is if you have one person representing that area, everyone on this council will tell you, and I can vouch for the integrity of council, we wouldn't do anything there. But what about 4 years from now? What about 6 years from now, 8 years from now? Somebody else comes in and they have motives. And we're reading all the time in the paper of people taking money for this and for that. And so by dividing it, what you have actually created is not a district of 2, but you've created a district of 3, because the mayor, by mayor's position, is the one who will basically attend all of the events, speak to those people, and usually when they're asking for any kind of representation from the city, they're asking for the mayor. So now what you've done by dividing it, now you have, in a sense, representation from 3, not 1, not 2, but 3, which is majority of council, and I think that is a better model. And also it's checks and balances. I would not be in favor of any map, which Meldorf map does, that would make a council member have to run ahead of their normal time. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I heard language up here, the people voted a council member in. That council person should be able to hold that seat for the next 2 years and not have to run again. Because what would happen with Meldorf map is a council member, Moles, if he wanted to continue on, he would have to run again in March instead of waiting 2 years.
I think that's
That I'm talking. And so to do that, I would not be in favor of any kind of map that would present that. There, he was elected for 2 years. I also heard that, you know, that someone should be allowed to run for representation, to run again as a council member, that the people should have that choice. That's a personal choice. Whether we run for re-election or not, that is personal. That's not people's choice. That is a personal choice. Whether I run again in 2 years or whatever, that is a personal choice. I've been elected to run for a 4-year term, as has Councilmember Moles. That's people's choice is 4-year term. Once that term is up, it's not the people's choice for either one of us to run again. It's a personal decision if we're going to run again. So that criteria, that argument doesn't exist for me.
So,
in the
Mr.
map
Mayor,
that's
I
up
don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
actually, Mr. Moles was elected at large, so he would stay there.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, and thank you for the correction, is that if there was a map, and one of them is presented there, that would put Councilmember Sarega and Councilmember Moles together, that if Moles wanted to continue, he would have to run again, right?
If he wanted to run for the new 4-year term.
If he wanted to run for the new
That's
4-year
correct.
term, that's
That
what I was
part's
thinking.
correct.
Thanks for the correction if I didn't
I'm sorry.
articulate that correctly. So with map number 12, thank you. To Mayor Pro Tem Ing's point, I think this map does divide the community along its natural neighborhoods and boundaries. For example, in District 4, you have all of Biola. You include all of their housing. I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago with the city manager, with Dr. Corey from Biola, and we brought up this very issue about the fact that Biola isn't just the campus, it's also housing and other issues. So I don't think that area should be broken up at all. Area 2 goes into the theater and the shopping district area there. Area 3 has a lot of residential, but it comes through into the golf course area and takes in the high school in that area. Area 5 now will go up and take a lot of part of the Imperial Corridor that we were talking about. It also takes part of the shopping area. But District 1, which this is really all about, because MALDEF in their suit has said that District 1 has to be predominantly Hispanic and it has to come up for election in March 17. It does represent the Hispanic community. And by the way, just a little side note as far as MALDEF is concerned, if MALDEF was so concerned about the Hispanic community, they would have drew a map that included me in that community. But since I'm the only elected Hispanic, they didn't do that. Their interests are not about Hispanic, it's about something else. So I totally reject their map. Going back to Area 1 on that map, what that map does, it gives all the Hispanic representation that MALDEF is asking for, but on the east end of it over there, it connects with an area that we just came out of a meeting that we were talking about. That corner right there on La Mirada Boulevard and Imperial would be basically what we would call downtown, yes, thank you, downtown La Mirada, talking about putting in an archway in there, talking about designating that as a major impact area, retail area and all that. So that area, it goes in there and it includes all of that, as it does with the shopping district and senior center along Valley View. So it does incorporate a lot of facets into the community. And so having said that, I believe that in this process that none of us wanted to get to, none of us has a real good taste for, I am in favor of map 12. And so if there's any other comments, yes.
Just a couple brief comments. So on the statement that was made that Councilmember Moles would have to run again for another 4 years, if he chose not to, he still serves out the remainder of the 2
Sure,
years.
well, that's-
So that's fine,
Right.
which is what I wanted to clarify.
Right.
Another point was,
Will you relinquish the floor?
if you need, I'd.
For
couple
a
more
very
comments.
brief comment.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to me that you're right. If, in fact, I choose not to run, then I do continue to serve for the remainder 2 years. But the choice that's taken away from me is in 2 years, I cannot run because I live in District 4, and District 4 will already have a representative. So the choice is taken away from me. It's just not taken away from me now. It's taken away from me 2 years from now.
Right, it moves up your decision to this year. The other point that was made that was stated previously was that the MALDIF map appeared gerrymandered. I don't know about the rest of you, but map number 12 is absolutely 100% worse in the way that it cuts neighborhoods and the lines that it draws. And if you want to talk about gerrymandering, that is the definition, gerrymandering to allow a certain individual to run in a district. Another comment was made about the commercial center on the northeast corner of District Number 1, which happens to be the smallest commercial parcel in that whole area. All 3 other corners are much larger. So that is not downtown La Mirada. Actually, if you wanted to look at downtown La Mirada, it's down in District 2 by the theater center. That's considered downtown La Mirada. So again, you're taking District 1 and you're removing any economic incentive in that district.
The hospital's there,
The hospital is not an economic, it's not an economic
but the
engine.
hospital's there.
You're talking about economic engine.
Hospital's not an economic interest?
It's not an economic engine.
Really?
It is not a revenue generator at all. It's a service.
I'm not talking about revenue generating.
That's what economic
No,
engines
that's
are
not what
not.
I'm talking about.
All right, in any case, I appreciate your comments, but I disagree respectfully. The other part, Biola, being pulled off, it literally is part of District 4, which all of that district south of Rosecrans has less to do with Biola than the 2 districts to north and south of it, much less to do with it. The split right under Regional Park, where that neighborhood is part of District 2, that neighborhood, and I know Councilwoman Deal lives in that area, is heavily impacted by Regional Park and the golf course as well. So the lines are just absolutely atrocious in this map. I don't agree with them. And we talked earlier about how districts weren't going to separate the city and that we're all going to work together cohesively. But all I've heard, and I'm including myself in this as well, from each one of us, is how these districts separate certain neighborhoods, and we've been talking about division more than we've been talking about unity, which is unfortunate. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. This map is obviously going to get voted on and approved. So with that being said, I just wanted to voice my disagreement with the map, the way it's drawn, and obviously we'll move forward from here, which is fine, not a problem, but I just wanted to make known my disagreement with the map that's been proposed.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one more
Councilman
comment.
Meany.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilmember Moles said that, if it's the map, if it's a good map, then, we don't judge what map it is. For me, listening to all the public input and comments that spoke about the Maldiv map, everyone begins condemning Maldiv. That's how they started. So I don't see how I can actually, if it's personal feeling, judgment, I'm not afraid to say that. How can you build trust on a cracked foundation? I can't. I just can't. Someone coming to my house, sue my family, take my furniture, now tell my son what to do, how to design my house. Not gonna happen. I 100% disagree with the Maldiv map.
But you voted for it, you should have.
Do we have order?
I
or
don't care what you
have
say,
to
Mr.
leave?
Sarega.
Could we have him removed, please? Thank you.
He was the only one that voted against it.
I don't even know what he said.
It doesn't matter. We will always have order in here. This is totally out of order. We will not accept it. Decisions are made that none of us are happy with any of this process, And, but we are charged to do what's best for La Mirada. And just a quick comment back with Councilmember Sarega on the hospital area. That's a potential area. Who knows what could happen with that area? It could be redeveloped. It could turn into something else. But also people that go to that area, where do they go? Where do they eat? Where do they could be shopping in here. So it does generate some stuff, but your point is taken with that. Any other comments? At this time, a motion. Motion.
Oh, I make a motion to adopt map number 12.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Second. Any comment? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deal.
Aye.
Councilmember Moles.
Aye.
Councilmember Sarega.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Ming.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Mayor DeRusse.
Aye.